Welcome everybody from all around the world. And we've been talking about the different time zones we are in. The sun's just starting to come up on a cloudy day in Vancouver. Thanks for taking time over everybody's different holidays to take part in this ceremony, which it's IARJ Hall of Fame Awards. We had the first ones last year in Utah, in a real place. This where we actually got to meet people in person. But just really briefly for people who aren't too familiar with the IARJ, we were founded in Bellagio, Italy in 2012. We have more than 500 members around the world. We've organized more than 8 conferences on 5 continents. And they've been amazingly fascinating for me, Canadian. So this is the second years for the awards. We were in Salt Lake City, organized at a great conference organized by Peggy Stack for it last year. And we gave awards to Maria Paz Lopez, who's here with us. She has done many things in journalism, working for La Vanguardia. She covered the Vatican for a long time, and then is now the German correspondent for the paper. La Vanguardia is in Barcelona. Great paper. We also gave a Lifetime Achievement Award to the late Anthony Shadid. He's an American with Lebanese roots. He covered the Middle East for Associated Press and other publications. He won 2 Pulitzer Prizes for international reporting. And he was shot on assignment in Ramallah at one point. He was reported missing in Libya at another point. He was a staunch believer in reconciliation of religions. But he died in 2012 of an asthma attack when he was on assignment in Syria. But this year we have 2 equally incredible journalists with incredible careers, and that's David Briggs and Erick Kabendera. I could talk a lot about David, especially about Erick too, from what I know about him. But we've got other people to talk about their fascinating and powerful careers, so let that start. Just the format is that we the speakers speak for 5 minutes, and we'll try to wrap this up in an hour and 10 minutes. And then Erick and Andy wants to get a photo of us at the end, so don't sign off too quickly at the end. And Andy's got an idea for getting a photograph of us all. So, and we're going to start with a presentation to David, my old buddy, and with an introduction about David by Andy Bayuni.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. It gives me a great pleasure in introducing the first of 2 recipients of the IARJ Hall of Fame Awards today. David Briggs Sr. I have to add senior because his son is also called David, and a journalist too, and is here with us. David Briggs Sr. towers in the journalism profession. Yes, he's super tall, that he should be playing basketball instead of writing about religion, but I think he made the right career choice. His achievements in journalism makes him stand out above the rest. Yet in spite of this, and in spite of his height, he's super humble. David Briggs Sr. is the brain behind the International Association of Religion Journalists, IARJ. It has been his long-time dream to set up an international group like this. And he made it happen in 2012 when he assembled 23 journalists from around the world in Bellagio, a beautiful town in northern Italy located between 2 lakes, where we launched the IARJ. I was one of those fortunate 23 journalists that he had picked for the gathering. That's when I got to know David, and I recall how passionately he urged us all to set up this association. David served as executive director of the IARJ for 4 years, and I had the fortune or misfortune to succeed. It's certainly an honor to have been asked to continue his fine work, but I can tell you that he had left too big a shoe to fill in. And he kindly agreed to stay as special advisor to help. David is currently writing and editing the Ahead of the Trend columns for the blog of the Association of Religion Data Archives. The founding director, Roger Finke, is with us. He will have something to say about this later. For a long time, David was the national religion writer for the Associated Press, starting in 1994. During his time with AP, he was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize at least 8 times. He had joined AP in 1988 as a reporter for religion and ethics. He began his journalism career with the Buffalo News and the New Haven Register. He graduated from Missouri School of Journalism in 1976, and he earned his master's degree from the Yale Divinity School in 1985. Between 2000 and 2002, David served as president of the Religion Newswriters Association, RNA. He had been recognized repeatedly among America's top 10 secular religion newswriters. He is an award-winning journalist. His collection includes the RNA's James O. Sapler Memorial Award for Religion Writer of the Year and the Wilbur Award for Excellence in Secular Religion Journalism. He received several other honors for investigative reporting on various topics, including scandals in churches. After leaving the Associated Press, he worked for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and his writings were distributed by the RNS, and he wrote and edited for the United Methodist News Service. One of his longtime passions is to take religion journalism globally. Yet he always makes the point that it's not the case of American journalists telling others how to report on religion, but more a case of international journalists sharing experiences and learning from one another. The IARJ is set up precisely for this purpose. Let me recite a couple of paragraphs from his article about the founding of the IARJ. In his 2012 article, he is commenting on the rise of religious radicalism, how this affects the works of journalists, and how issues relating to faith can cross borders with starting speed and consequences. So let me quote, "Now is the time for the type of knowledgeable, on-the-ground reporting that provides careful international perspective regarding the complex motives behind many events and places in context the actions of small groups of radicals amid the public and private lives of people of faith throughout the world. Yet, too often limited by our own cultural biases and limitations, this broader understanding gets lost at home and abroad amid advocacy journalism and fact reporting that reinforce popular misconceptions of fears of religious minorities and religion in public life." End quote. Let me just add as a final point a personal note about David. I have not come across a journalist who is as humble as David. He has been writing extensively about humility, about how humility is a value held in high esteem in all major faiths, and how many religious leaders, clergy struggle in the humility religion paradox, how humility is important for a long-lasting relationship. These are beautifully written articles, and even more beautiful because I know the person who writes it. David, you are an embodiment of humility. I called David last week to break the news about the award. We had wanted to keep it a surprise, but decided to give it as a Christmas gift. And as expected, David was reluctant to accept it. He felt there are others more deserving the award. Well, we beg to differ. Your friend in IARJ and many in journalism profession will be happy if you accept this award. You truly deserve this Lifetime Achievement Award. And I'm sure I'm speaking for many others present here today, that we have been lucky to have you as a friend, a colleague, and a mentor. Journalism and journalists profit greatly from your immense contribution and wisdom. Thank you, David, and congratulations.
Thank you, Andy. Really appreciate that. It's beautiful. Next speaker is Roger Finke. He's with the Association of Religion Data Archives.
Yeah, Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me. David speaks with such affection about all of you that it's really good to be here, and I'm glad you let me be a part of your group here. I think you were very wise in selecting David for this award for many reasons. I mean, the obvious one, of course, is he has this beautiful, clear, engaging prose. He tells stories that really have a purpose and are worth telling. And perhaps most important for me as a social scientist is he actually reads the things he's writing about. So he really does investigation into what he's writing about. He reports on it remarkably accurate and understands the research remarkably accurate. So I have great praise for him in all those areas. And the second reason I think it's really wise to select him is he's always been such a supporter of you, of all of you. I personally witnessed his empathy and concern for international journalists long before IARJ was reformed. He expressed concern for other journalists and how they could better be facilitated and helped. And even when he first came in with the International Association of Religion, or with I forgot what my organization is called, the Association of Religion Data Archives, one of his concerns was to provide better data, better evidence as far as for international journalists. So he's always had that deep concern, and he's done it in a way which, as Andy was mentioning, in a very selfless and a sacrificial way. Selfless in the sense that he was always trying to build others up, but sacrificial in the sense of, I'm guessing you probably didn't pay him a large amount of money to do all this either. So he really did this out of the goodness of his heart. And he's really been committed from day one. I think Andy expressed this as well, to making this an international association. I belong to too many international associations that are founded either in the Europe or the US, and then have a few token other international members. He was strongly committed to really supporting international journalism, and I'm very impressed. The third reason that I think you should do this are mostly personal ones. I personally am deeply indebted to David for many reasons. The most obvious is all that he's done for the ARDA, which I work with and founded. When David started working with the ARDA, he gave us instant credibility, but the most lasting impact he had was just ongoing high quality journalism. He delivered a content that we couldn't have delivered without him. When he went on to do Global Plus, it was something no one else had dared try. And we found out later that when people did dare try, it took them several $1 million more to succeed at it. So he's really been very successful at this. I will say my greatest debt to David so far, though, is really personal. He's always been a source of encouragement for me as far as with the ARDA. Even when I tried to discourage him that starting a new foundation association was too much work, he moved forward and still gave me encouragement with what I was doing. And I guess beyond that, as far as beyond just the professional relationship, he's just a good person to be around. He's good for helping me to focus on what was important and keeping a good balance in my life, as he tried to keep a good balance in his own life as well too. So we used to have at least monthly phone calls where just he and I would talk. I miss that. So I guess we need to start having Zoom beers or something, because some way to continue expressing this. So anyway, congratulate IARJ. And I'm confident David has touched many lives, but I can say with certainty that he's clearly touched mine. So a great choice.
Thank you, Roger. Fantastic. Next speaker is Susan Hogan, who's an editor with the Washington Post, and I think goes back with Dave to RNA days. Go ahead, Susan.
I changed jobs this year, so I'm now with the Atlanta paper. And I want to thank you for inviting me to say a few words about David. I have to echo Indy in saying and noting David's humility and how self-effacing he is. You try to give him a compliment and he will quickly deflect and turn the conversation on you. So David, I think the ceremony is wonderful because we can say wonderful things about you and you can't change the subject. I've known David for nearly 30 years. And as a young religion writer, he was my role model in journalism as I saw him break story after story of national and international importance. He's won many, many awards over the years, and they are a measure of his excellence. His range of reporting is incredible. He's an outstanding investigative journalist, but he's also a masterful storyteller who writes with compassion and empathy. As I got to know David, I discovered, as others have noted, that he is a kind, thoughtful, caring, honest, and ethical person. I also learned that we shared a desire to broaden the conversation among religion writers into one that was truly international. He pursued that vision relentlessly, despite many, many obstacles that were put in his path. And because he and others in this organization never gave up, IARJ is making a difference, is making an impact, and continuing to thrive. Congratulations, David, on receiving this award. Thank you for being a friend, a mentor, a role model. Your legacy is enormous.
Thank you, Susan. As people are speaking, I'm realizing how great an idea this was to have this award ceremony for David and Erick, just to, as people say, just force David to listen. The next speaker is Maria Paz Lopez. And I forgot to say in my little mention of her that she was the original chair of the IARJ. Go ahead, Maria Paz.
Hello, hello, dear friends from all over the world. The main reason why I'm speaking here today is because David Briggs, as founding executive director of the IARJ, and me as founding chair at that time, did share long hours of conversation and strategy and tremendous workload and challenges and suffering in the early years of the association, mainly between March 2012 and February 2016. Then it was when Doc Todd took the role of chair after me. So now I find myself here, and it's such an honor to be ready to sing his praises. And as a journalist, I will try to do it with accuracy, fairness, and balance. So it was his vision, David's vision, of the need of an international association of journalists who cover religion that mobilized the effort, also the initial funding effort to get started as a group with the now legendary, mythical founding moment in Villaggio, Italy in early 2012. David Briggs, an outstanding American religion journalist with a long professional career that was unknown to me by that time, felt that the new collegial body should be made of committed professionals, certainly, but perhaps even more important than that it should be diverse. Because the world is so diverse, and in order to reflect its religious and cultural complexities, you need a diverse body of journalists, women and men, young and veteran, staff reporters and freelancers, writers from various countries and continents, from all ethnicities and religious backgrounds, a diverse group in which the English language should be a tool of communication, not a tool of imposing a Western worldview. So I am a Spanish journalist. Now I am posted in Berlin as foreign correspondent of La Vanguardia and still a religion journalist, a religion columnist actually. But for me, back in 2012, when I was a full-time religion writer based in Barcelona, and when I met David on the phone after having Googled and found out about the plan of creating this International Association of Religion Journalists, oh God, that conversation was a defining moment. His assurance to me that this project would be truly international, absolutely made of people with different backgrounds and sensibilities, well, that really captured me. And I still remember. So as you can see, our professional destinies, David and mine, were bound to meet at some point, even if 8 years ago we didn't know. And it's been a long way since. And the only thing I can say now is, David, thank you for including me in that bunch of reporters that you gathered in Villaggio in 2012. because it was illuminating for our careers and for this defining moment of starting the association. And thank you also for the illuminating insights that you have insufflated to the association from the very beginning, and for the substantial contributions that you keep bringing to it as a special advisor. On a more personal level, we will be friends and professional pals forever. Glorious greetings from your friend and colleague. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Marie Paz. Beautiful, fantastic. Yeah. Now we're going to hear a little from David himself.
Well, thank you, Doug, and thank you to everyone. It's you know, it was a shock last week when Indy called. He'd actually sent a note that he and Doug and I would have an urgent meeting because I was involved in the planning for Erick, honoring Erick, and sometimes an urgent meeting means there's an urgent problem. But I am overwhelmed with gratitude just to know each one of you, and to it's just been a lifetime of gratitude. When we begin by saying, Doug kind of introduced the idea into my brain, how many years ago, maybe 20, 25 years ago, when he said to me, this organization, the RNA.
Dave, do you mind if I interrupt? There's that, people can hear that sound, I assume, right?
Yes, terrible
I
sound.
think it might be coming from Prince Charles connection. There was that problem earlier.
Right.
There we go.
Prince Charles, can you hear us? Great. Okay. Yeah, the sound's gone. Just start again, Dave.
Okay. Well, it's just it's just an overwhelming feeling of gratitude and a real surprise to be honored in this way. And I just might briefly begin by saying some of the people on this call, Doug and Peggy and Susan, and there's also Peter Smith, and who's not, and Sandy Dolby, were part of the first group that, well, when I was president of the RNA, we talked about reaching out internationally in a mutual, in a form of mutual respect and dignity. That didn't go over too well, but these people, so many people have been so involved for so long in this idea. And I did want to just briefly mention that Doug kind of really first introduced the idea into my mind when he said, maybe 20, 25 years ago, said, the RNA is really a US organization. And I never forgot that, and it got me thinking. And well, I just feel that every moment on this journey has been a blessing to meet so many different people, and particularly and especially and with gratitude for the people on this call. And but every moment from the very beginning has been a gift. And we started out, as Susan might know, as well, the International Association for Religion Journalists had asked me to lead a couple of dialogues on, well, they said teaching American organizations always look at it as training others rather than learning from others, but we changed those into dialogues, and I got to meet include many of the people on this call, including and just learned that how this organization could work. We'd start out with people from all over the world with many different understandings, and we'd end up just journalists recognizing the problems we all faced and the challenges and the joys we faced together. And it was a precursor to this. And then I think I've shared with other people, but I should share it with you briefly, is that it was just kind of walking after we'd done a couple of these, it was just kind of walking on the street one day that said, let's go for this. And I approached, mentioned the idea of the IARJ. Could we ask for a grant for this to get started? And they asked me, well, go ahead and draw up a proposal that they submitted, and it was accepted. And they, I was asked to be the project director. Of course, it was part of a big organization, but everything worked out, and there's so much love and kindness and wonder at the opportunity I had to travel around the world and meet different people. And so I just feel it's just been so important to me that you've all each of you have been a gift to me, and the day will come soon when Odinga and I meet. But I just learned so much, and I think what we do is so important because we're still, even 10 years later, we're still the only organization that I know of is truly international. All these other organizations with international in their name or international in their, I'm just not aware of that many that actually are international in practice. That in the very beginning we had, I guess, 8 board members, and that grew a bit. But until Peggy, a marvelous choice for our first member from U.S. All our board members were members from throughout every part of the world, and we have in meeting with journalists, that was so critical. I particularly remember a time in Israel where Jonah kindly introduced a half a dozen of his colleagues that wrote on religion, and we all sat in a coffee shop. And Jonah, if I'm not mistaken, every one of them said, well, this isn't going to be a U.S. organization, is it? And I promised them I promised everyone throughout the world that no, this is going to be a professional organization where mutual respect and dignity and sharing and learning from one another, as long as I am involved at all, would be right at the center. And I think what we have done together is so important. It's critical to the world to show a way of that every one of you are doing. And Andy mentioned that, and I have gotten a particular interest in humility. The idea of the value of humility, and science has promoted that. The idea that we be open to new ways of understanding, that we respect one another, that we recognize each other's strengths, and be sensitive to our own weaknesses. But I wonder if it's a little bit more than that. I think it's a matter of love you know, that we love one another when we treat each other as human beings, that we don't group entire groups into boxes, often based on our own prejudices. But this group, you know, seeing Uday and from India and Waqar from Pakistan, just as one example, as great professional journalists and colleagues who come from you know, different religious backgrounds and national backgrounds, who promote the understanding among Muslims and Hindus and well, Muslims. Excuse me. Yeah, Muslims and Hindus in both countries. And, well, I think what we're doing is really important. And from that very beginning, what I was going to share is that was that moment walking down the street that I felt in my own life. I felt like it was the Holy Spirit speaking to me, that this is something that would bring value to the world. And just like in all sorts of people with all sorts of different belief systems could have created this organization, but I think at the end, it comes down, and Uday could speak much more eloquently than I can about this, but it comes down to love for one another. You know, the passage both in it's central to both Judaism and Christianity, and well, I believe in all the world religions that for many people to love God with all their heart and mind and soul, and to love one another as yourself, particularly the shared vision of loving one another as yourself. I believe that we show that to the world, and we can offer a way out of polarization. And I'm just so grateful to you're all gifts to me, and it doesn't. I wish. I wish I could be better at loving each one of you, but I think at the end, I think love is important, as well as you know, as well as the other gifts that journalists have in not trying to convince others that their point of view or their reporting is right, but just trying to experience the wonder of the world and all its diversity and report that accurately. So I guess my only just like to end by just giving immense amount of gratitude to well, to every one of you, and Andy, you were so particularly kind, and Doug, I hate to mention any individuals, Larby and Elisa, but Maria Paz and Jonah, and I'm leaving people out and getting to meet Julina and Odinga and Eric, and please forgive me if I've left anybody out of this call, but you have made a tremendous difference in my life, and as I've tried to minimize myself from that very first day when I had you have done remarkable work, and I hope to continue to be a volunteer in supporting each one of you. But it is you that the future is in your hands, and well, just wish love and peace and joy to all of you, and thank you.
Thank you, David. Thanks for, there's so much I could say, but I'm tearing up a bit actually. Thanks for your vision and bringing us together, and let's keep this thing going. Let's have I think we could clap for Dave. Great. Now, thank you. We're going to hear a few more words from David now, actually, as he introduces Erick and his career and the amazing things he's done. So Dave, take it away again.
Well, thank you. This is what I was supposed to be doing today. And this is the real pleasure, pleasurable part of the day for me. You know, when we first met, well, many of us first met Erick in Bellagio in 2012. What struck me was, you know, we had a really busy time, as Larbi and Elisa can remember, and all of us. But Erick was such a dedicated journalist. When the rest of us, you know, maybe at the end of the night, went out for a beer or just went out for coffee, and Erick was still working. And in the morning before we started our long day, Erick was working again. I said, here is an incredibly dedicated journalist. And I wasn't to know his full story, but it's a remarkable story. Erick is an investigative journalist based in Dar es Salaam, who writes for a remarkable array of international and regional publications, and mainly covering issues in Tanzania and the surrounding region. He regularly has contributed to the East African, the Africa Report, the Economist Intelligence Unit, Africa Confidential, The Guardian, The Times of London, and the global development news agency Interpress Service. And what I was to learn, or what we're all to learn is, and we have learned from our colleagues, including Prince Charles around the world, just how courageous and inspiring the work of journalists in well, many parts of the world, including Nigeria and Tanzania, just to do the work. Erick has just been, well, he has been a mentor to Tanzanian journalists through the Tanzanian Media Fund, but he's been a mentor to all of us in his work in extraordinarily challenging circumstances, just holding the highest ethical standards of reporting in some of the most, in one of the most challenging environments to be a journalist in the world. You know, there was a period, and Erick can correct me on any of this, but there was a period in Tanzania where the relative liberalization of politics toward the media, but but that's changed dramatically, and you know, and again, forgive the pronunciations, but with the election of President Magufuli and the ruling Chama Mapinduzi party, which has maintained an outright majority in Tanzanian politics since elections were first introduced in 1992, and winning every 5 years election since 1995. There has been, well, a terrible, almost brutal progression in dealing with the opposition, and that includes the media. Shutting down newspapers critical of the administration, barring rallies, arresting opposition leaders, and finding other media outlets. And throughout all of that, you know, Erick, in his writing and his reflections, has been a model of journalistic courage in writing about these issues fairly and accurately. Even as around him, journalists were being, well, in some cases murdered or hung or beaten severely. And his own case, his parents were taken and detained and warned to warn Erick about his writing and what the consequences could be. And many of you know that he was arrested last year, and 9 days before his arrest, he co-authored a story about tension within Tanzania's ruling party and the alleged plot to prevent the president from running for a second term. 9 days later, a group of men came in and, a group of men not officially identified came in and took him from his house. And for 24 hours, he was detained without any charges. And that led to a nightmare over the last 7 months of detention and beating and on charges that were, had no merit. It was just meant as an intimidation tactic. And unfortunately, excuse me for 1 second while I just get my notes correct. The official charges against Erick changed throughout his imprisonment. First, they were over Erick was a Tanzanian citizen, then to allegations of seditious cyber crimes before landing on claims he used 2 private companies to commit tax evasion. Erick's attorneys and he decided to plead guilty to the tax evasion charge and had to pay fine up to $100,000 in US just to get him out because of his declining health over his treatment in prison. But even then, as soon as he was released, he credited fellow journalists with helping to get through what he described as a trying time for all his fellow journalists that stood with him in prayers and in comfort. Many of you came to greet me at Segerea prison. You brought me books and newspapers, and you encouraged me to stand firm in the situation I was facing. Well, he's encouraged the world, the journalists all over the world, to stand firm in the face of injustice. And he is, even 2 months or just shortly before his release, his mother, who is his teacher and mentor, passed away before she could again hug her son. And Erick, we cannot tell you what a gift you are to all of us, and we cannot know. We just have an idea of the suffering you have undergone in the past, almost 2 years now, as the trauma of the trauma of your treatment continues, and you have not been allowed out of the country to get treatment for the beatings you received. So we are so honored to present you with this, that you have agreed to join us in the Hall of Fame. So you're a blessing to all of us, and there's I'm well. I don't know how much more to say. It's just a gift to be back together with you again, and you are just the epitome of what we of who we would like to honor in the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thanks for saying it's an honor to be in Erick's presence here. We're going to hear some testimony from Fausta Masokwa. She's with the Tanzania Media Foundation. Thanks so much for making yourself available. Fausta, go ahead.
You. Yeah. Thank you, Douglas. And thank you everybody. It's really inspiring to me to learn about the International Association of Religious Journalists, or religion journalists, and what it is you're doing. And it's also really apt, I think, that I get to hear that Erick is also part of what it is you're doing. So I'm just going to give my own personal experience and interaction with Erick. In the faith tradition that I belong to, when one is asked to give a testimony, is to speak in public about one's personal story of faith, or in other words, the process of building your relationship with that which you have faith in. So this is my personal story of a process in which Erick has played a key part for me, whether he knows it or not. And this is kind of my own journey with journalism and working in the journalism sector. And in the Tanzanian context, Erick has been a big part of that. Whether he knows it or not, Erick often features in my stories of what it takes to be a great journalist. And I mean both the glory and the pain. But I will only talk today about the main lessons that I've learned from Erick, whom I met soon after I started my own career in journalism, short-lived as it was, in practical journalism. I met Erick, I think it was around 2004, when I joined Mwananchi Communications Limited. I won't say just yet what lessons I learned from Erick, and I hope you forgive me also in talking about Erick, I'll also be talking about myself, but this is my personal testimony of Erick, and it's about how I have related with him since we met. Erick and I met late in 2004, I think, or 2005, early 2005, around the time when I started my first job, which was a job in journalism. And at the time, Erick was still a student. And I think we were both quite lucky in that we had the opportunity to work with one of the leading media houses and centers for quality journalism in Tanzania. And I think it's had a profound impact on both of us. Back then, I think Erick was just like me in the sense that we both had no real idea what journalism was all about and what it would take to be successful journalists. And I think we couldn't have known then how much being a good journalist has to do with hard work. Personally, I thought then that it was just a talent or a gift, something that someone just had, and they worked at it very easily and effortlessly, just the way one would work a beautiful smile or something that, you know, someone was just born with. But I think one of the main lessons that I've learned working with Erick and seeing him work is that this is not so. You know, journalism is not just about talent or gifts. And this is why I personally will always admire Erick. I learned from Erick that it takes a certain amount of heartfelt desire to be a good journalist. It has to come from your heart. But it doesn't just take desire, it also takes hard work. And I learned this over the course of the several years that I've watched Erick, worked with Erick, and seen what Erick has had to endure. I did learn this very quickly. It's not something that I think when you're just starting out, you pick up just like that. And at the time when we met, we were both just starting out in our careers. And I think we were both just caught up in what work demands of you when you're young and what you yourself set as goals for yourself personally. I should point out that back then, 2004, 2005, I think I was always more of a writer than I was a journalist. And so when we worked together, I very quickly became more involved in sub-editing, which for me was work that involved storytelling as opposed to chasing stories. And Erick for me was one of those who was involved in chasing stories. And then I think we would work together to craft these stories into something that people could consume. I say Erick taught me hard work because I wonder if today he remembers that back in the day when we worked together, he always submitted much more copy than he was required. And I think it was because Erick is just hardworking. Something David said rang true to that. But for me, it was like he was giving me a lot more work than I required at the time, because my job was to make sure that I cut the story down and it fit into the space that that it needed to fit in. But I think this is one of the things that makes Erick Erick. In my view, he's always done more than he has had to, and he's always, I think, kind of opted or allowed himself to endure more than he has had to. But I guess there's more to the lesson I learned from Erick than just hard work, in the sense that the hard work that I had to do because of all the work that Erick brought in, probably twice as much as all the other journalists on our team back in the day. But while I left the newsroom just 2 years, I think, after I started to join civil society and to work in the broader area of information access, Erick stayed in journalism. And for me, him staying in journalism allowed him to do all that he's done in the years since then, in the years since we met in 2004, some of which has been shared here already. So I won't talk much about that. But it also allowed, I think, what happened in the sense that there was a bit of a switch, in the sense that when I met Erick, he was a student and I was a working journalist. But I think over the years, I've learned a lot more from him than he has learned from me. We have worked together after our stint in journalism in the same newsroom, when Erick joined in 2010 a fellowship at the then Tanzania Media Fund, the first fellowship for journalists. And on that fellowship, I was a mentor, but I always say that my experience on that fellowship, because of the journalists that were on that fellowship, including Erick, was I felt that I got to learn a lot more about what journalism is all about than I probably taught any one of them. And listening and interacting with Erick in those sessions, 2010, and over the years since then, our relationship has always been professional and personal. And I always come out with something that I always tell anyone who cares to listen to me about, you know, what it takes to just be successful, not just in journalism, but I think in life. We become who we want to be, in the sense that we pursue that which matters to us, and we choose in a way, under different circumstances, of course, what we can and what we cannot endure to become that which we want to be. And I think Erick has had to endure a lot David has hinted at some of those experiences. I won't get into those. There's so many, and I think that this is a time more to celebrate what Erick has done. It's up to us to grow in the areas that we choose to work in. And for me, what I've learned from Erick is that he was determined to grow in circumstances that were tough, in circumstances that were challenging, personally beyond what I could imagine experiencing. You know, I've witnessed him experiencing all of that, and sometimes from near, sometimes from far. I've gotten to watch him grow, and I hope that in watching him grow, you know, I have also grown. And not just me, I also believe that many of the other journalists that have worked with Erick, many of the ones that I encounter in my work now are inspired by him. And 5 minutes is not enough to get into all of the things that I would love to say about Erick. You know, I would love to talk about his courage, his resilience, his integrity, his passion, all the lessons that I've learned from him, from his professional and his personal life. I can only say that for those who have worked with Erick and those who have seen him from the time he started out to where he is now, including myself, that we are so proud of what you've become, Erick. And for me, you are one of the most deserving journalists from Tanzania. You are fully deserving of this award. You're fully deserving of being honored for all the work that you've done. And it's so diverse that I can't even get into it when I think of the stories that you started out doing when we were at the Citizen, to the stories that I've seen you do at an international level, and the complex issues that I've seen you grapple with and do justice to, sticking to the principles of fairness and balance in your reporting. Well done. I'm proud to be your friend, and I am very privileged to have had the honor of learning from you. Asante sana. Asante sana, Erick, and well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Fausta. It's really appreciated that. And it's great to have other colleagues of Erick's here from Africa and the rest of us around the world for this. The next testimony is by Absalom Kabanda, who's I see is here. He's the former chair of the Tanzania Editors Association and head of the communications at New Habari Media Group. Go ahead, Absalom. Great to see you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't think it's the night here.
Yeah.
I had to park somewhere alongside the traffic so that I could be attending this virtual meeting, especially for a friend, a colleague, a young brother, a family member, Erick Kabendera, whom I've known for the past 16 years now. Actually, a lot have been said by David and later by Fausta. As a colleague, I knew Erick in 2004, 16 years back, when we worked together at Mwananchi Communications Limited. I was the editor then, and he was just a new reporter working for the Citizen. But interestingly, I was 6 years older in the field than he was. But and I'm 10 years older than he is. But funny enough, apart from the truth that I was the editor and he was a reporter, within a year or so, he became the well-known reporter within the cycles of the Citizen. That's why an international media or international publications in Britain and elsewhere, like the Independent, the Guardian, and Times, the Economist, and others came to know about Erick, as how David had said, and he was picked then to become a distinguished reporter. And you could find that as an investigative reporter, Erick has written much on politics, not only of Tanzania, but of region of East Africa and Africa at large. And actually, this is not the first award to be won by Erick. I know he's won some other awards before because he was worked for the World Bank. He's written globally. He was written some stories in West Africa, in Central Africa, in Congo, because he's written a lot, not only in politics, but also on his extractive industries. So Erick is a person, is a journalist who could not leave a stone unturned when he's pursuing a story. I've known him not only as a colleague, but also as a human, as a journalist with a heart, because sometimes in 2013, I was attacked here in Dar es Salaam, and Erick, without going back to home, when the doctors recommended that I had to be airlifted to South Africa, boarded a plane with me as a friend, a colleague, and a nurse to South Africa in a plane for five hours. And he stood by me, making sure that I got treated, because I was also injured when I was working as a journalist. That's why when he was arrested last it was in last year July, and forced to stay in custody for 7 months. His friends, colleagues, and the international community came up against the incident, fighting for him, knowing exactly the role he has played in journalism. And UK, Britain, and Amnesty International, and the number of international organizations stood by him until when the government decided to free him 7 months after being in custody on pre-bargain category, knowingly, as how David said, the charges were baseless, only knowing that Erick has always been holding authorities and individuals accountable for their mistakes and their role in poor governance in the country and elsewhere. That's how I can say less, because of whatever I could say more is what have been said or shared by Fausta and David on Erick.
Great. Thank you, Absalom. Fantastic. Thanks for coming to us from your car.
Thank you so much.
In the evening in Africa, that's amazing. We said we'd go to about now, but and somebody said they have to leave at half past the hour. So we'll keep moving along here. This is fantastic. Now we'll hear some testimony by Prince Charles Dixon, who's on the IARJ board, and he's a journalist in Nigeria. Go ahead, Prince Charles.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. I'm not gonna say just very few. I think I want to speak of Erick from just two perspectives. One would be the fact that Erick, as a journalist, has met my criteria as a superb colleague. I've read a couple of his works, and they show me curiosity, loyalty, they show me kindness, they show me a passionate, tenacious ability in the work that he does. I remember just in July when we had a conversation around the fact that he had been picked up. I could relate with that because working in Nigeria, I know what it is like when journalists are picked up. Your phone's taken away, your family's harassed. In his case, his wife's phone was picked away. And for a couple of days, we couldn't even wrap our heads around what it was that he had done wrong. And it was tougher period, having to coordinate, find out what the Committee for Protection of Journalists had on their own end and what we had. Working with Elisa and Dog to be able to put out something on our sites to at least get a little bit of information across the global journalism world to say, look, one of us is going through this. It's not every time you find a journalist come out unscathed with such experience. I remember speaking with a colleague in Tanzania who said it will be a matter of days.
Okay, I think we lost Prince Charles. Let's just wait a couple of seconds to see if he can come back. I can't express enough admiration from Canada for the kind of difficult conditions a lot of other journalists work through and especially Erick in this case. Here. Hi, Prince Charles.
Yeah. Did I lost you for a second?
Yeah, we lost you for about 20 seconds, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can only say that the choice of IARJ in picking Erick and also having to bestow this honor upon him is one that is unquestionably one of the best decisions we've taken. It also would act as motivation for those who work across the globe. Most of us are proud to be members of IARJ, a truly international global organization. And Erick, we just cannot but say thank you for the work you do. Thank you, importantly, for the people who learn from the work you do. And thank you for the encouragement and the motivation you bring for those who practice and those who write and those who investigate. In the work you've done over the years, you've proven that a good journalist should not be afraid. A good journalist must be honest by nature. A good journalist must be curious about everything and all things. And in this regard, I want to say a very big congratulations to you. Congratulations, Erick, and congratulations to everyone at IARJ.
Thank you, Prince Charles. It's really great to get your perspective and everybody else's. It's so impressive. Now we get to hear a few words from Erick himself.
Oh, thank you very much for this award. I'm truly honored to receive it. I'm overwhelmed by all your support from IARJ, from my colleagues from Tanzania, who have stood by me, who have basically stood up to be counted in an environment where everybody basically is afraid to raise up their hands to be seen as supporting a journalist like me. Thank you very much for IARJ colleagues for speaking out. I think for a journalist who is in my situation or who have faced a situation like mine, the voice, every voice matters. Your safety is the voice of your colleagues. I would like to also thank the colleagues who joined us from Tanzania. These were colleagues who were fearless, who were not scared to be seen supporting me, who lead the government's efforts to say I was innocent. So in a country that is going through difficult period when it comes to press freedom and freedom of expression, having colleagues stand up by you, not being scared of being jailed themselves because of being seen supporting you is quite incredible. So thank you very much all for everything you've done to me. And I hope the solidarity, the unity can continue supporting colleagues who are facing similar circumstances like mine. When we had the first call with David posed an interesting question to me. He said, Erick, how did your faith help you during your incarceration? And this question triggered some of the painful and bitter memories that I've gone through in the past 2 years. And I remember the first week after I had been, jailed. A family member showed up to see me in prison with a book that was written by St. Jude Thaddeus. So St. Jude Thaddeus was one of the disciples, Jesus Christ's disciples. And in Christianity is being considered as a patron of difficult cases. So a family member said, I believe if you say prayers by St. Jude, you stay strong and you get released from prison. And the simple statement that was made by a family member actually triggered whole my boyhood, being born and raised Christian, serving as an altar boy, following the rules, staying out of trouble, and then basically being jailed, of course, for doing your work. But I just realized that faith was key in keeping me strong, not pointing the fingers at anybody, and believing in what I did as a journalist, and believing that no matter how long it would take, the truth will always prevail, and I'm going to be freed. Secondly, I would also like to talk about the in prison. The prison that I was held up is notoriously known for all sorts of criminals, across the country. And when I got inside, regardless of the charges each of the inmates were facing, they saw me as a person who represented the hope, a person who could speak up for people who had no platform to speak out. So it gave me great hope to learn that I could actually continue doing my work as a journalist even when we're in prison. So by listening to stories of individuals, the stories of people, we're in a prison with about 12,000 inmates. And each morning you have people seated outside your cell thinking that you could be that person to help them become free the following day. And one of the stories that I still remember today was a story of a gay young boy who had been sentenced to serve a month in prison 4 times for the duration I was in prison. And the 4th time when he came back, he had been charged to serve a month and a half for loitering and prostitution. And when it was a Sunday service, where inmates, regardless of their faith, would come together to say prayers, he came to me and said, "Am I allowed to come into church and prayers?" I said, "Why not?" Because he said, "Well, all my life, I've been rejected. I couldn't go to church. I couldn't go to mosque because I'm gay, and I'm worried whether I won't be kicked out." And when I held his hand and walked inside with him, he broke down into tears, and he said, "For the first time, I feel accepted." And I think that was a lesson to me to say as a journalist, where we deal with all different kind of stories, but at the same time, as human beings, we are always quick to judge that this is bad, this is wrong. But I think our responsibility is to tell the stories, regardless of how bad this is in our eyes, or regardless of how good it is in our eyes. And this is the work that I am determined to continue pursuing, regardless of where it takes me. And I believe this is the only work I was born to do. And despite the circumstances I'm facing, it's been a very, very difficult period for me, facing rejection, isolation, unemployment, but at heart, the journalism, the truth-telling, the determination, nobody can take that away, no matter how long I would stay in prison. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erick. Wow, yeah. Your strength is amazing, and obviously keep in touch with us about anything we can do to support you and keep you protected. And I appreciate that you're dedicated, but I do, I'm concerned about your keeping safe. And I know you'll try and find that balance. And I think I didn't see Ezekiel's hand go up a while ago. So maybe there's a little chance you could say something now, Ezekiel, with your baby there.
Thank you for inviting for this. I think I should focus on what happened.
Ezekiel, it's a bit hard to hear you.
I've been meeting for. Sure. Now, can you hear me now?
That's better. Go ahead.
Better. Okay. So I'm saying thank you and Hannah to meet all of you here. The only thing I want to say is Erick is a good friend of mine. Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you, but it's all garbled.
Oh.
I don't know what to say.
So maybe I should write. I should write.
Does anybody have suggestions?
Right only.
Maybe you can turn off the camera and just the sound.
Yeah, try
You try that.
Ezekiel.
Okay.
Turn off the camera.
Okay. I think camera mute.
Now say something.
Hello.
Yeah.
Let me try that.
No, you're getting cut out all the time. Yeah, it's too bad. Try it one more time, Absalom. Just say something. No, it's not working. That's too bad. That's too bad. We should wrap up now. Is anybody maybe want to say something for 20 seconds that they haven't had a chance to say to David or Erick? Pedro, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, just in 20 seconds. Thank you very much, David, for phoning me, as happened with Maria Paz, and asking me to be part of IARJ. I would like just to say a couple of few words. That David vision of who doesn't see the US as the center of the world, I think was the most important thing when he thought about building a IARJ, and I think that's very important. His vision that the world is really a world, and the US is not the center of the world. Just that.
Thank you, Pedro. Dinga, did you want to say something?
I was aligning with what Pedro said.
Yeah. I remember Pedro giving David and all of us a really hard time right at the beginning, saying he didn't want this to be a US State Department backed organization. It was very good.
I also really want to add a very small thing. Hi everyone. Sorry, I was late actually. I was stuck somewhere. I was really, because the diversity which we have developed from in last 8 years, and we were the first persons there on this forum. It's very amazing, and the story we are doing and the way we are taking the religion journalism cause in the society, that is very much, somehow when we do stories on religion, we also find confidence to establish this particular religion journalism thing in our newsroom, in our society, in our politics. There are a lot of vibrations when we get that. That is very much amazing. Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone here who is available and very much devoted to this cause.
Thank you, Bhavya. That's great to hear from you.
Yeah.
There's Maria Paz wants to say something. Turn on your mute, off your mute.
Yes, sorry, I take the word again because I didn't have the opportunity to say anything about Erick. And just I wanted to say that he's very brave, and thank you, Erick, for showing us as the people who live in countries where there's no problem with being a journalist, there's no real danger, and to remember and to understand that it's not the same everywhere. So thanks a lot for your testimony, because it helps us to move forward and to understand that not everybody is privileged. And so as Doug said, please keep a balance. You don't need to be a brave journalist every day. Just protect yourself. It's more important for us than journalism sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Paz. Great. Unless somebody wants to desperate to say something, I think we should start wrapping it up. And I want to thank Andy for all the coordinating he's done of this, and such a
photos.
What's that? And stay for the photos. Stay for the photos.
Which can everyone turn on the camera and put your best wide smile on the camera.
Have to smile.
You have to smile.
That's right.
Big smile.
Even you, Pedro.
Okay, and Absalom. Absalom, are you there? Let me see. Okay, 1, 2, 3. One more, just in case. Oops, sorry. Such a tech folk. All right, smile. Okay, we are done. Back to you, Doug.
Well, I'm ready to wrap it up. Just to thank David for his incredible vision, a great career before that, and it still continues, and his vision for getting this going. And to thank Erick again for his strength, and to know that we're behind you, even though, and we want to keep you protected, as Maria Paz says. Do anything we can for that. And Peggy, yeah.
I just wanted to say that we have certificates that will be sent to them, and actually Marty has a copy of them if he wanted to hold them up or anything.
Right, thanks for remembering that.
Marty?
You're mute, Marty.
Yeah.
There we go. So David, here is yours. And Erick, this will be coming your way.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, folks, for everybody being here. It's been such a treat to be part of this group and to meet everybody around the world, and continue during COVID to meet you this way. I'm glad we pushed to make this happen this year. I'm going to sign off, and I don't know if people want to hang around and chat with each other, but well, it's hard to say goodbye to your smiling faces around the world. Everybody. Uday.
So long.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
So long. Bye.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Thanks.
Happy New Year to you, Andy.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you again, Andy, for all that you did to make this happen.
Oh, my pleasure.
Andy, this was a special Christmas present. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for me too. I was able to see
it
you,
was
Lisa.
great seeing everyone. Oh, I miss you, Odinga. I miss you all.
Miss you more. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Marty.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks, David, Marty, everybody. Bye.
Careful.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, everybody.